Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Rixie, one of the creators here at Collector's Maze. My guest today has been voicing characters for over 40 years. You know him as the voice of the Bone Crusher and Springer from Transformers, Norman Osborn and the Sandman from Spider-Man, the animated series, Shipwreck and Buzzer from G.I. Joe, Jeff, Keith, and Pidge from Voltron, as well as a huge list of others. He's the author of an absolute must-read book for anyone interested in rock and roll, radio, or voiceover. Everyone, Neil Ross. Neil, welcome to the Maze.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you for taking the time.
One tiny critique I just noticed. I think in my voluminous list of credits, you forgot to mention my old friend, the Green Goblin. And I only bring that up because that's a perennial fan favorite. I don't know exactly what that means. I read it in a seed catalog, and I've been trying to work
perennial.
It into a
Okay,
yeah.
Perennial is that. So when I think of perennial, like a plant, so it always comes back, right?
Yeah.
And that's weird because the annuals, those don't come back. Is that correct? Am I thinking right? I'm not a gardener. I'm not a gardener. Someone's going to have to Google that for us. But okay, so
you'd have to ask my wife. She can. She can tell you all that.
Same with mine. She's out actually planting away, spreading mulch as we speak right now. I got out of it.
Bless her heart.
So thank you.
I know the feeling.
All right. I can't help but stop here first. Weird Al. Did I catch that right? Did you perform in that? So it's a song. What's that? Oh, I can't watch this. I can't watch this.
Can't watch this. Yeah,
I can't watch this.
That is the sum total of my career as a recording artist. is that one track on Weird Al's one of his CDs? Yes.
Great song. I mean, who doesn't love Weird Al? I mean, that's the one time you essentially went to the other side of the booth. So you were what was being played in that. So how did that come about? Did you actually meet Al? I mean, what was that? How did that work?
Yeah. It was one of those that fall out of the sky. I didn't audition for it. 99% of the time, that's what happens. But in this case, I really don't know how I got the job. I suspect he said, I'm looking for somebody that can do sort of a stereotypical hard sell announcer. And they said, oh, we've got just the chap for you. And they probably sent him a sample of something I'd done, and he picked me. And also another voice artist, Bo Weaver, is also on that track.
Oh,
he does a tremendous amount of promo work. And so I just, it's a long time ago, but I went to a studio that I had never been to before because it was not a voiceover studio, it was a music studio, and they recorded me there, yes, and I met Weird Al, and he was actually very nice and unweird.
Contrary to the name.
Yeah, and a good time was had by all. But that's the sum total of my my recording resume.
Well, recorded that for music, I would assume.
For music, yes.
For music, because you've recorded a multitude of other things. So, did you catch the Weird Al? So it's Weird, the Al Yankovic story, the movie that Roku put out recently, which was a parody of his life. I think I'm not sure if you're into parodies, but he created it, right? So it's an interesting movie. I mean,
he's a very, very clever, creative guy. I mean, he's managed to make a very, very good living off of a very strange thing, but. He's the king of song parodies. He really is.
Well, absolutely, and who doesn't love a good parody? I mean, yeah. There was the longest time that some of those I thought was the original, and in the movie they actually spoof on that because I think it was just Eat It. In the movie they play it like Michael Jackson stole Beat It from Eat It. So yeah, good movie, worth watching if you're into that kind of thing. So Press Your Luck. 2019, was it 2022?
I did it for 4 years.
4 years, okay.
I'm not involved in the in the last season, which was the 5th season, sadly, but for 4 years, yes, that was my one and only game show, and I really think with that I've done everything in voiceover it's possible to do, except maybe announcements at the Greyhound bus depot, but I don't know if that's really considered voiceovers or
Well, I
not.
mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's on IMDb, but I mean,
No,
someone's got to do it, right?
indeed,
So,
indeed.
did you also voice the whammy in that, or was that someone else?
No, that was me.
Okay, that's what I was hoping.
Uh,
Talking as high as I could, and
then they futz it
Yeah,
somehow, and it could be Winston Churchill by the time they get through with it.
exactly.
But yeah, it's me.
Well, I have to say the whammy is the unsung hero of the show. I mean, for me, I hadn't watched it before, and those people, they just don't know when to stop, right? I mean, it's like, I'm watching it and I'm screaming at them. I'm like, why are you spinning again? You're already
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah.
But I think the whammy's there to teach us all that stop while you're ahead. I mean,
Yeah. I'm always screaming. Yeah, take the money and run.
well, no
But,
doubt. But inevitably, they're like, I'm going for it. I'm going to press my luck. I don't. I
Yeah.
I'm
don't.
going to spin one more time, Elizabeth.
Wah,
Yeah.
wah.
And inevitably, here comes the whammy, and I love the different ways he comes in. So, how do you think you would fare at the show? I mean, do you think you would resist and not
Oh
press your
yeah,
luck?
I'm not a gambler. People that do and lose fortunes, I just don't get it. I don't know what it's. My feeling is life is enough of a gamble without introducing artificial peril. But of course, everybody. One of the wisest remarks I ever heard, and I don't really know who the gentleman was who said it, but he said everybody's got a Jones. It's just some people are lucky enough to live their entire lives without finding out what theirs is.
Oh,
And, I had a couple of Joneses in my life over the years, so I understand what it's like to get hooked on something. I just don't understand people that get hooked on gambling, but it happens.
I would like to think I would stop, but something tells me I probably would be that. I mean, that same. I'm going to do it again. Something tells me that I couldn't resist. I don't know. I don't know if it's wired into us or what. I don't know. We'll see. I may never get the chance, but maybe one day I'll do a game show.
Well,
Could you see yourself on a game show? I mean, would you go do a game show?
I don't know that I'm. I think they want these people to be really loud and not obnoxious, but interesting. And frankly, I don't think I'm that interesting. So I
beg
would
to
probably
differ.
get
I beg to
eliminated.
differ. I beg to differ. I think you would be hilarious on there. I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe somewhere down the road. All right.
Yeah.
So Transformers, G.I. Joe, Spider-Man, Voltron. I mean, a massive, massive list of credits. And you may have already shared it with us, but what character do you get asked to do the most, and what's the line?
Well, I do a lot of conventions, and probably the top characters for me are Springer in Transformers, Shipwreck in G.I. Joe, Keith in Voltron, and the Green Goblin in Spider-Man, the animated series. And I was lucky enough to have a line that's attributed to one of the characters, and people love to have me do it. And that's Springer in Transformers the movie, which came out in 1986, where he uttered the immortal line, "I've got better things to do tonight than die."
That is so-
And I'm sitting there at the premiere in a theater in Westwood, Fat, Dumb, and Clueless, and that line came out of the speakers, and the whole place went insane for about a minute and a half. You couldn't hear any of the other dialogue, and I thought, oh boy, maybe I'm on to something here. And so people want to hear that, and they quote it to me, and that's great. I mean, if you got a tagline, Sylvester Stallone has "Yo, Adrian," and Clint's got "Make My Day," and I've got "Better Things to Do Tonight Than Die." So that's wonderful.
That's awesome, and I love that. So not only did you voice Springer in the the '80s animated, but then also, I mean, in the movie as well. Is that right?
Yeah, that was a curious thing. To this day, I don't really know, because what they did, of course, was they were planning on introducing a whole bunch of new characters. And so they had them portrayed by celebrities in the movie, and then the plan was those voices would be replaced with us plane rap actors for the TV version. But I was already doing Springer at that point. It's just I don't think any of his episodes had aired yet. So maybe that was the reason they decided not to give the part to a celebrity. Maybe it just wasn't a big enough part. I don't know. But I was very, very, very lucky that I got to do that in the movie.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so
Yeah.
so revisiting that later, I mean, is he just in your bones, or do you have to go back and revisit, some audio to remember exactly who he is, how he sounds? I mean, how did you keep him
Not,
straight?
I think for most of them, I need a little refresher. That's one of the things they do at animation sessions. If you haven't done the character in a while, or if the director feels like you're not quite there, they'll play you a reference track. But Springer is so relatively easy for me to do, I don't think I would need a refresher track. It's just a question of whether I could succeed in sounding the way I did 30, 40 years ago. And,
So far, I have managed to avoid what happens to some people my age.
Well, you pulled it off beautifully.
I mean, if you call me at 3 in the morning, you may
It's
hear
way
it.
different.
Hello.
But if I have a chance to pull it together, I still sound relatively youthful.
Neil, I promise I won't call at 3 in the morning.
Please.
And if I do, you have every right to ghost me, but I wouldn't. Oh, okay. So, man, which of the characters that you've done over the years, I mean, who would you say is most like you? I mean, is there one that was like, oh my God, this is me?
Well, no. In fact, it's interesting. It's like, what does it say about actors? Their joy in life is being somebody else for a while. So no, there's really nobody that I've ever thought. Oh, in fact, the late great Jack Angel once said the most terrifying direction he ever received from a director was just be yourself.
Oh,
And he said, I don't want to be myself. That's why I'm an actor. Come on. And so what you're really looking for is to get as far away from yourself as possible, I think. Or maybe you bring elements of you into it, but you're not. No. I'm trying to be somebody else every time I walk in a studio.
so I think I know the answer to this one, but if you could jump into the life of any of them for a day, a week, which one would you want to jump into? And be?
Oh gosh, Shipwreck could probably.
That was who I was going to guess.
Just because one of the joys of acting is you get to misbehave and not pay the penalty for it. In fact, you get rewarded for it. And I would love to experience a day or two where I could just pretty much let my id take over and do any damn thing I felt like, which is the farthest thing from me you can imagine. So yeah, that would be fun for, I don't know, 48 hours or so.
Be shipwrecked for 48 hours. Yeah.
Providing I got a free pass,
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. Just whatever shipwreck would do. I mean, is good. What happens while you're in shipwreck, stays. It's shipwreck.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember some of his signature lines. He had a couple, right? I mean, what's the one you get most from him when someone wants a shipwreck line?
Not really. There's no line that I can think of that people attribute to him. No.
None I can remember off the top of my head, but I do remember. I think the way he was. I won't say ornery was the word, but he maybe a little snarky, maybe a little.
Yeah. Well, I think what made him really interesting to me was that if you sort of analyze G.I. Joe, the good guys were really, really good, and the bad guys were really, really bad. And the interesting thing about Shipwreck is he was sort of a hybrid.
Oh.
He wanted to be a good guy and do the right thing, but he also insisted on doing things his own way, which led him to becoming insubordinate and getting into trouble. And that made him interesting to me, that he had these shadings in his character. And if you presented me with a whole list of the available roles in G.I. Joe and say, which one would you want to do? Shipwreck would have been my first choice. And it was really a lucky break. I've told this story, but I think it's kind of interesting. I vividly remember auditioning for the part. And I went in, and there was a guy in a sailor suit, and, they had a one-paragraph description of him, and I went in, and I did a couple of passes at the dialogue they had given me, and I could tell I was not impressing anybody, and I was all set to go, well, listen, thanks, guys, and leave, and then a guy over in the corner said, hey, have you ever seen the movie The Last Detail?
Okay.
And thank goodness I had. It's not that well known of a movie. It stars Jack Nicholson.
Okay.
And that gave me the clue, because what I was doing, what I ended up doing, was this sort of Nicholson-esque way of doing a shipwreck. And the kids didn't really catch on, because movies he did were not appropriate for children. And at that time, especially The Last Detail, I mean, it's a pretty raunchy movie, and so they didn't really realize that I was doing an homage to Jack.
I did not know that. So
and of course, Jack's voice has changed now. It's down here and very gruff. But if you go on your YouTube or somewhere and find an interview of him as a young man, you get up into this territory here. And the minute I started doing that, everybody had thumbs up and big smiles. And the guy that asked me the question said, "You got it."
Oh.
And the key to me, if anybody wants to track it down, I think it's still on YouTube. Go put in Jack Nicholson Last Detail bar scene.
Okay.
He and a couple of other sailors go in a bar, and they don't want to serve them, and Jack does this over-the-top thing at that point, and that's what was in the back of my head when I did that audition for Shipwreck. And that'll give you the clue to where that whole thing came from.
I'm going to have to... Okay, so tell me the movie one more time.
It was called The Last Detail.
The Last Detail.
Detail being a military term for assignment.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Jack's character and another sailor get assigned the job of bringing this third sailor to serve 8 years in the brig. And they feel like he's been unfairly treated, and they decide to show him a good time before he has to go to prison. And so they have all kinds of misadventures. Jack was nominated for Best Actor for that movie. He did not win that year. And then in quick succession, along came One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Chinatown. And, of course, as everybody forgot about The Last Detail, because those movies were so much bigger and so much more popular. But it's worth seeking out. It's a lovely little movie, and well worth watching.
I'm going to have to...
Especially if you're a Jack fan, see some of his early stuff you may not have seen before.
No, I think the earliest, I mean, all over, him in, oh, gosh, what's the one with Tom Cruise? The titles...
Oh, A Few Good Men.
A Few Good Men. Well, I don't know why I couldn't think of that off the top of my head, but yeah, that's probably... Well, no, The Shining. I mean, The Shining.
Yeah. But those were well along in his career. He was established by then. His story is fascinating. He was in his mid-30s. He'd given up on acting. He was trying to become a screenwriter. And they sent him out to basically the backers said, we gave all this money to Peter Fonda and Dennis Hopper, and we don't know what the hell they're doing with it. Would you go out there and kind of keep an eye on those two maniacs? They're making some kind of biker movie. We don't even know what the hell it is. And by the time he gets out there, Rip Torn has had a fight with Dennis Hopper and quit. So they said, as long as you're out here, Jack, do you want to play this small part of the lawyer? Well, okay, I'll give it a whirl. Well, he absolutely smacked it out of the park. He's not in the movie that long, but he makes such an impression that I don't know if you've even seen Easy Rider or know anything about it, but at the end they get killed, and it's and so as you're walking out of the theater, you'd hear people say, "Oh man, that ending, what a bummer!" Jeez, hey, who was the guy that played the lawyer? He was fantastic, And that suddenly put Jack on the map, and he started working as an actor again and went on to become a mega star. But he'd just about given up at that point. He was in all these weird American international movies that Harvey or not Harvey Korman, but Harvey Korman. Roger Corman did those cheap bike movies, and he struggled for a long time.
Well, I'm gonna have to dig that up. The last detail. I need to watch some older Nicholson. And I absolutely love that he was the inspiration for Shipwreck. That is so cool.
Yeah,
I mean, I hadn't caught that anywhere, so that's awesome. That's all right. So now you have a daughter, is that right?
Yes.
Your daughter. So I got to believe story time around the house. I mean, she must have loved that. I mean, holy cow! Come on.
Yeah, that was my assignment.
That was
my
yours.
wife very very wisely said, you have this weird schedule where we never know if you're going to be around or not, because I was totally freelance. I never knew what one day was going to look like from the other. But she said the one thing you can do is read to her at night on a regular basis. And so I did, and I didn't, I mean, I wasn't trying to impress her. It's just you start to read a book and it has characters in it, and you start doing the characters. And one evening I couldn't be there for some reason, and my wife went up to do the reading, and she started reading something, and my daughter said,
You're doing it wrong.
What do you mean?
You're not doing it the way Daddy does it.
Well, what does he do?
Well, he plays all these characters for it,
and my wife, I'm not a... She was crushed. She said, what the hell do you do up there? Put on a show? I said, I guess so.
It is. It's
Yeah. I think she had a story time for her was probably a little better experience than if her dad did something else.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that had to be like just this audio extravaganza. I'm sure that was.
Well, I remember reading the Chronicles of Narnia. Oh. Somebody gave her that as a Christmas present. So I did that. I think I read damn nearly the whole thing and played all the characters. And then we did Sherlock Holmes for a while. She liked that. So I would steal Jeremy Brett. And I don't know if that's been a while now. He was doing they did a Sherlock Holmes on public television. And Jeremy Brett was the actor's name who played Sherlock Holmes, so I stole his voice.
I may have seen that.
Watson, I did Nigel Bruce for the movies. Holmes, I don't know. What are we going to do next, Holmes?
Oh gosh, that had to be she had to be in pure heaven. No wonder. I mean, Mom didn't have a chance. She didn't have a chance.
No, she
she didn't have a chance. If you were out of town, it's like no, I don't. Don't even bother. I'm sure Mom did great. Yeah. So I want to stop off at Voltron for a second before we get to your book, because there was something that I didn't realize about Voltron. And for those who don't know who Voltron or what Voltron is, because there may be a few out there, but that was this animated series. And it was the story of these 5 giant robotic lions and their pilots, and they together they defended the universe. Now you voiced Keith, Pidge, and Jeff, and that was like 120, 25 episodes, something like that.
It was 125 episodes. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Holy cow!
Amazing.
And
I mean, the whole business changed. When I was trying to get in, I mean, if you got cast in a Hanna-Barbera network show, they did maybe 13 episodes a year. At least they do 13 episodes the first year, and maybe the second season they do 8 episodes. I mean, and suddenly the business just erupted, and suddenly 125 of these suckers. Yes.
That's massive. That's massive. And if I understand this correctly, now animation, was done a traditional way. I mean, you either have where the voice happens and then the animation comes afterwards, or the animation's already done in, let's say, another country and you're redubbing it, so that would be a dubbing. But was this done totally different?
Essentially, it was dubbed. What happened was the fellas that put this together went to Japan and bought the rights to 3 different shows. And the plan was to mash them up into one show, and then they ended up not using anything from one of the 3 shows, and then they used the other 2, and they were kind of different. There was the Lions plot, and then there was a plot involving people going out to explore distant regions of space. And the one with the lions, that's the one everybody remembers. That's the one that was popular. So in a relatively short time, I think they stopped showing the other episodes and just stuck with the ones involving the lions. And so anyway, your question. So it was an already existing show. In fact, from what I've read about it, and I didn't know this at the time, they took a look at these shows and they said for cultural reasons and blah, 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 these are not going to work in the United States. So they sat down and they wrote original storylines, and then they had to sift through the footage they had to find the picture that would support it, which sounds like just the craziest way to make a show. But we were unaware of any of this. This was all done by the time we showed up to record. And you would have a line of dialogue, and to the right of it would be a number like 5.8, meaning you must do this line in 5.8 seconds to match the lips of your character. And you could actually go 5.7 or 5.9, but you had to be in that pocket. So you do a line reading, and they go, "That's wonderful. That's the mood we're looking for, but you're 2 seconds too long." And they do it again. "Well, now you're a second fast. Well, now you're a second long again." And it's like, oi. And as a result of that, we could not work together as a team. Each actor worked separately. So the only time I would see my fellow cast members is the person who was leaving as I came in, and then the person who was coming in as I left after doing my stuff. And it's sort of a backwards thing. I haven't ever done another show like that, because 99% of the time the way animation works is immediately after somebody has come up with a concept and written a script, bang, the actors go in the studio, record the voices. That is then sent to the animators, and they animate to those voices. So again, I'm mentioning the late Jack Angel. He pointed something out that I hadn't thought of, but he said, 99% of the time in voiceover, we're about the last thing that happens before the commercial gets on the air or the movie gets shown or whatever. But he said in animation, it's interesting. We're among the first things that happen, and all the rest of it comes after that. So there would always be a tremendous lag time. People say, "Do you ever watch your own show?" And I would say in a lot of cases we were too busy, because these aired in the late afternoon and we were probably working or on the freeway. But even so, there was this tremendous time lag, maybe as long as 6 months between the time you recorded an episode and the thing actually got on the air.
Oh, wow.
And by then you were completely forgotten and moved on to some other project. And so I really never saw that much of my stuff. Not that I'm that interested in sitting around and watching me, or listening to me. I'd rather enjoy somebody else's work.
Yeah, absolutely. So in traditional dubbing, then they don't have, you only have 6-7 seconds. I mean, so is traditional dubbing a little different?
Well, this was really a weird setup. I don't think I've ever worked like that before. Traditional dubbing, you've got the picture on the screen, and they get you in with 3 beeps. In other words, you go on the imaginary beep, 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 talk.
Okay.
That's when the mouth starts to move. At that point, you're on your own, and you've got to match the lips as best you can. And that's how that works. And it's gotten a little bit easier thanks to digital technology. They can slide things, compress things. In the old days, you had to hit it on the nose or just go back and try again. But Voltron was the only. We never saw a picture. I never knew what any of these characters. Well, they showed us, drawings of the characters, of course. But I never saw a frame of footage until years later. We just had these numbers. You got to hit it in 5.8 seconds, or.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Keith versus Shipwreck cage match. Who's going to win that one?
Well,
who would you put your money on?
Well, if Shipwreck's allowed to cheat, he's probably going to win.
It's a cage match. All right, so you're taking Shipwreck. You're putting all your chips on Shipwreck. All right, I like it.
He'll know how to fight dirty,
Keith doesn't have a chance. All right, so you, my friend, have an amazing. I'm going to show that amazing book. There we go.
Thank you.
Amazing book. I'm on.
I'll see that and raise you.
Look at that. We match. We match. So vocal recall, life in radio and voiceovers. For me, it's like this history of rock and roll and, voiceover told through the story of your life. I mean, following your calling. Now, one of our previous guests, she said that to be successful in voiceover, you have to want it with every fiber of your being, and your story is what that looks like, physically looks like, which I love. Like I said, I'm on 13, and I'm a slow reader, and I find I'm getting through this really quick because I'm enjoying it so much.
Oh, thank you, appreciate that.
Well, what made you decide to want to write the book? I mean, what was that push?
I had a situation that bothered me a bit, and I went to see a psychologist, and she said, you should journal, you should write, you're a writer. And I finally sat down and I banged out 100 pages on this situation that was bothering me. And it was so easy, it just spewed out of me, and I thought, I could possibly. Then I started writing what was supposed to be a monologue. And I began to realize this is way too long for a monologue. And I just started writing one chapter at a time, telling myself if I get bored and fed up, I'll just quit. All I'm doing right now is writing this chapter. That I can manage, because I never thought I could write a book. So I sort of played a game with myself. You're just writing a chapter. You're not writing a book. And then I'd finish that chapter, and I'd think about, well, what do you want to write about next? And I'd roll it around in my head. Sometimes I'd go jogging, and the whole time I'm running, I'm running phrases through my brain. And at a certain point, I'd get to critical mass, and I'd jump in front of the keyboard and write it all up before I forgot it. And it took me about a year. I mean, I don't have the discipline that real writers have, where they do it every day at the same time for 3 hours, no exceptions. I just did it when I felt like it. So it took about a year. But and it's probably too long of a book, but it's what I wanted to write, and it's an autobiography. But if you're interested in the golden age of AM top 40 radio, there's a fair amount about that. And then if you're interested in voiceovers, in particular animation voiceover, that whole story is in there too. Talking about various shows and the directors and the actors I worked with, and things that happened in sessions, and like that there.
Yeah, and rock and roll history too.
Yeah, it's a little frustrating to me that there are. Well, I mentioned this in the book. I quote the late Lenny Kilmister from Motorhead, who's talking to a younger rock musician, and he says to him, the difference between you and me is I remember when there was no rock and roll, and it was effing horrible. And I said, I'm right there with you, because when I was a kid, I would put the radio on, and I just found the music insanely boring. Nothing appealed to me. It was all just noise. So I would tune around looking for a talk show. Even if I couldn't really understand the topic, I would listen to these voices, and I would try to imitate them, and that's probably the beginnings of my voiceover career. I just didn't know it. But then one glorious day, I heard a song on the radio, and it just electrified me from the tips of my toes to the hairs on my head. I just felt joy, exhilaration, freedom, a million different words. And it was Little Richard singing Tutti Frutti. And that was the first rock and roll record I ever heard. And I just sat there transfixed, didn't sit there. I stood there transfixed thinking, somebody finally got it right. I've been waiting my whole life to hear this. Well, of course, I wasn't alone. There were tons of other boomer kids who were locking into this stuff. And then along comes Elvis, Jerry Lee Lewis. But a lot of younger people, it's not their fault, they're just sort of unaware that there was this time when there was no rock music. And a time will come again when there will be no more rock music. I mean, it's not the force it was. Everybody's into rap and hip hop now, which I'm sorry I can't get on that train very much. But we had a hell of a ride with rock and roll. We really did.
Well, my kids they like old '80s rock. I mean, they're what I consider '80s rock. Queen and Foreigner, Boston, Journey, all that stuff now. And even and I have an Elvis playlist that I listen to and I enjoy. I think one of my favorite Elvis songs is Polk Salad Annie. I love that song. I don't know why. I just love that song. I don't know if you've heard that one or familiar with that one.
It is the version I'm familiar with was done by an artist named Tony Joe White.
Ah.
And that was actually a big hit record in 1969. I don't think Elvis ever released it as a single. But the version by Tony Joe White was the hit. You might track that down. To be honest with you, I don't think I've ever heard the Elvis version.
It's on the essential playlist that I pull up on Apple. And I'll have to double check, but I'm because it comes up on the Elvis essential playlist, and I love that song. But my mom was a huge Elvis fan, so we listened to it growing up endlessly. And you are a great writer. I love you're a wordsmith for sure. And I want to share this passage that you wrote on Elvis with everyone, just because I love it so much. You said in the book, Elvis Presley seemed like a creature from another planet descending into the sea of crew-cut conformity. With that mop of jet black hair framing a handsome face, a grin that seemed to threaten to break into a sneer at any moment, and sometimes did. You are very good with words, sir. So what?
Oh, thank you.
I mean, what do you credit that to? Where did that come from?
Oh, it's a gift. I always did. I was not a particularly good student, but I always did good in English class because it just was so easy for me. I never really needed to study on grammar or any of the rules. I could just sound out a sentence and say, this works, no, this doesn't, something's wrong. I never needed to study much for a spelling test. I could just look at a word and go, that's wrong, move a couple of letters around. Okay, I think that works. And, it's like people who can pick up a musical instrument and 3 hours later they're playing it. I'm so envious of that. I don't understand how they do it. I wish I could do it. I don't have that gift. But when it comes to words and language, I do have a little bit of a gift. And I sometimes people will go, oh, can you write something for me? And I do. And they go, how do you do that? And I say, how can you not be able to do that? It seems so simple to me. But then if I got around a real musician, he'd be going, come on,
Yeah.
it's easy. Look, can't you do that? No, I can't. That's just, some of us get this kind of gift. Some people get that kind of gift. That's all it is.
Sure. Well, it's a very, I think succinct might be the word. I mean, you put it simply and plainly. It's clear.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that. That's probably the type of writing that I enjoy reading the most. So absolutely loving the book. There are a lot of wonderful anecdotes in the book, and I've got to know. There's one I want to know about. What is the secret to a successful armpit fart?
I have a confession to make. I put that in the book. I forget exactly where or why, what point I was trying to make. I suppose
you were being a rascal in junior high, and you were talking about.
Yeah. One of the things that guys used to do was, they could somehow make a sound. I never perfected that.
I can't do it to save my life.
I can't do it, but I was around some virtuosos when I was a kid.
What is it about young boys and farts? I don't know what. I'm gonna take that back. What is it about just guys in general and farts that make me giggle? I
can't explain it. Like George Carlin said, you know, kids love farts. Farts are funny. And I maintain that within virtually every man you ever meet, there lives a 10-year-old who never grew up.
That's me. That's me.
And their wives and girlfriends are aware of this.
She
and
knows.
once in a while, the 10-year-old comes out and says something obnoxious, and they go, "Oh, honey, come on." No, you know, they don't find it amusing at all.
Oh.
And it's just the way it is. You know.
Do you have a favorite? I mean, what's your favorite anecdote in the book? Do you have a favorite one?
Wow, favorite anecdote in the book.
Well,
I guess it's, you know, what I like is the arc that happened from the moment when, as a 10, 11-year-old kid, I heard Tutti Frutti, to where years later, I think it was in the 90s, I ended up meeting Little Richard.
Oh, wow.
And what he said to me, and just the way that arc completed itself, because they were going to do, I don't know if you remember Sweatin' to the Old.
Oh, yeah.
No, yeah. And those Richard Simmons exercise tapes. Well, the same group was trying to build an exercise tape around Little Richard. So they were putting together a demo. Unfortunately, the project never worked out, but they brought me in to be the announcer, and all I had to do was one paragraph. So I walk in, and my God, it's Little Richard, and I didn't want to erupt, and I'm such a fan, you know. I just, very nice to meet you, and we had a little chat.
Would have been a mess.
And they said, well, Richard, you've got a lot of stuff to do, and Neil just has this one paragraph. Would you mind if he went in first? And he's, no, of course, no, go ahead. So I go in, and as luck would have it, and it's not hard for me. I mean, I would do rip and read newscasts at radio stations, read 5 minutes of news. I never looked at it in advance. You don't have time, and you learn to sight read. So I sat down, ripped off this paragraph, and the director said, well, that's perfect. That's what we want. Is it good technically? He said to the engineer. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Okay, that's it. You're done. I walk out. Little Richard goes absolutely nuts. Jumps up and down. He says, he got it on take one. He got it on the first take. I never seen nobody get nothing on take one. You bad, Neil Ross. You bad. He said, I'm going to tell Bo Diddley about you. And I said, oh, my God, I couldn't have asked for more. Can you imagine?
No. Oh,
and I
my
said,
goodness.
oh, all right, you've complimented me. I have to compliment you. And I told him the story, and I'm sure he'd heard it a million times. And he was gracious. But, you know, I thought to go from 11 years old to however old I was at that point and have that happen, to me, that's just such a lovely moment.
An absolute lovely moment. Absolute lovely moment. I love that you shared that, because you talk about the opposition that you faced, you know, in pursuing your calling, because it truly is a calling. You know what? It must have felt good to have that moment, but you know, when you were walking through it, I mean, what kept you going? You know, when you.
A combination of just a raging desire to do this kind of work, and there not really being a plan B. I mean, it was do or die. And, you know, there's just no shortage of people in this world who can't wait to piss on your parade. And I ran into a fair number of them, but, you know, you just keep climbing that hill. Yeah. And if things work out, you survive.
Absolutely.
And yeah, but you quoted somebody saying how committed you have to be to get voiceover. And I would second that. It's actually gotten a lot tougher, I think, over the years. So many more people have decided, oh, I can do this. And there's just thousands upon thousands of people. And, of course, the technology has gotten to the point where you can stick a mic in your iPhone and record, you know, and send auditions in. You don't need to invest in all kinds of equipment anymore. And so there are just so many people trying to get in, and
Yeah.
it was a complete opposite when I started. When I started, nobody'd ever heard of voiceovers. I hadn't heard of voiceovers. Somebody happened to mention it, and I said, "Oh my God, what's that?" And they told me, and I said, "That's what I was born to do. I've got to get out of this radio trap and get into voiceovers." And it took me a while, but I finally succeeded. But in those days, as I said, nobody knew about it, and there were a relative handful of people doing it, just people in L.A. and people in New York, and maybe 600 people in Los Angeles. The only problem was the buyers at the time, if they locked into a talent that they liked, they just kept using them over and over and over and over again. There was no incentive to try anybody new. So to break in, you had to do low-end stuff and hope that somebody wouldn't show up or they'd get sick or for some reason they'd let you into one of these bigger sessions. And it took me about 5 years before I said to myself, I think I'm finally in the business. But it was a long haul.
That reminds me of one of the anecdotes, or one of the, what I'm calling them, proverbs from the book. And it's luck is when opportunity meets preparation.
Yeah.
And I love that. That was one of those that I had to, underline, and like, I'm committing that one. I love.
Yeah, I read that in Robert Evans's book, The Kid Stays in the Picture, and I thought he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
There's nothing sadder than opportunity coming to somebody who has not done their homework, because that opportunity evaporates and it may never come again. And I always say you cannot control when opportunity is going to come, or even if opportunity is going to come. The only thing you have control over is preparation, so that if and when that opportunity arises, you are prepared and ready to do your stuff. And then you can take advantage of that luck. But if you haven't done your homework, it evaporates.
Absolutely. That as well as many others is why, anyone interested in, really anything in life that you're, aspire to do. This book is a must read. So I hope everyone jumps out there and grabs it. All right. What, the potato knish. The potato knish, right? Now, describe for us the proper potato knish.
Well, I just remember the ones I used to get. You're referring to a time when I was in New York and I had very little money, and you're searching around for cheap eats, and the best deal I could find was in these kosher delis, where they would sell you a potato knish for 15 cents. And it's basically pastry filled with mashed potato. And you get a little mustard. And it's not fine dining, but it fills you up for 15 cents. And I ate a lot of potato knishes in New York.
Do you still have a potato knish every now and then?
No. I'm a low carb fellow.
Oh yeah. That is definitely high carb. It bread and potato mixed together. It doesn't get any more high carb than that. Well, I love the stories of the time in New York. That's one of my bucket list places that I want to go see and spend some time. And I love your journey to New York. I caught that you stopped not far from me. I'm in Kansas City, in Missouri. So you stopped off in Rolla, Missouri.
Yes.
On your way through in the book.
I kind of had to.
Yeah.
My car was making a strange noise. And I pulled in at this place, and they were very nice. And they said, "Yeah, it's a problem with your tappets." I said, "Really?" Having no idea what a tappet is. Still don't to this day. But if you listen to those guys when they were on public radio, the two car mechanics, Click and Clack.
Yep. Right.
They call themselves the Tappet Brothers.
I love those guys.
I said, okay, I get that joke. Yeah, that was a great show.
Great show.
They were a colorful pair.
I'm guessing the car heads I know could probably speak more to it, but it sounds like the rockers needed adjustment. Those rockers which push the lifters which push the push rod would open the valve, so those that would loosen up and start making a lot of noise. You found a good, honest mechanic, which
Yes, I did.
it doesn't always happen. So I'm great.
No,
I'm
I'm
grateful.
well aware
I
of
was
it.
I was waiting for it to go ugly. I was like, oh no, it's gonna be.
Yeah.
It's gonna
No,
be.
these guys in Rolla, they did right by me.
Well, way to go,
Okay.
whoever it was in Rolla back then.
Yeah.
You guys nailed it. You guys nailed it. All right, so in the book you talk about, I mean, music, rock and roll shaping your life. I think what's your playlist like today? I mean, you said you're not into rap and things like that, but is there anything new that you've tried?
Well, there's an I mostly listen to the satellite radio now, and there's an alternative channel, and once in a while I'll hear something on there that I like. But they don't do much back announcing, so half the time of course there's a visual readout, I suppose. I don't know. I've been listening to, there's a channel on there called Little Steven's Underground Garage.
Oh.
Which is sort of the leader of the thing is little Steven Van Zandt from Bruce Springsteen's band.
Oh, okay.
And he was also in The Sopranos.
Oh.
And it's sort of garage rock based. And you hear some wonderful stuff on there by people that, all-girl band from Sweden, I think, or Denmark, and they sing in perfect unaccented English, and they are great. They just rock out. And a band called the Chesterfield Kings, they come up with some great stuff. I mean, it's just a lot of interesting stuff that is not in any way mainstream, unfortunately. But
no, that sounds great. So, what's that station called again?
it's called Little Steven's Underground Garage, and it's on Sirius XM satellite radio.
Little Steven's Underground Garage. I'm gonna look them up.
Yeah.
I bet we can pull them out through the internet as well. I bet they're broadcasting as well through somewhere. That's great. All right, so the book again, Vocal Recall. It's a must-have. Everybody, grab that. And that your website. That's Neil Books.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, let me do the fast plug.
Oh, yes.
The book is available on Amazon. It's also available, there's an audio version that is available either through my website or at Audible. I know a lot of people have subscriptions, so if you want to make that one of your 10 books of the month, it's available there. If you want to know more, yes, as you started to mention, there's a website, www.neilbook.com, neilbook.com. It's got links in it and a little sample of the audio version, a little sample of the written version, and like that there. So
Yeah, excellent. And I'm going to throw an extra plug in for the audio version. I mean, I bought the hard copy and I also got the Audible version, and I love the Audible version because you narrate that. And,
Yes, that was a lucky break. There was a huge audition to see who would get that job, and amazingly enough, I won. So
I
actually,
bet it was a
the only
grueling
narrator
process.
Yeah, I was the only narrator I could afford. I basically free and worth every penny, I would add.
Oh, absolutely. I love when you get to New York. You're working the two jobs. It's not a garment factory. What was the name of the place? But anyway, you had the owner and the vendor, and they're bickering, and you had a voice for each one of those guys, and you are a master because you totally pulled me into the story. I mean,
I couldn't not write about those two guys. It was actually a millinery supply goods place involved in the hat making industry, and they were just so damn colorful to me, coming from sleepy, as it was then, San Diego, and suddenly these two guys are fighting with each other, and then fighting with the salesman, threatening to throw them down the elevator shaft. And it was like watching a free movie or Broadway play or something. They had me in stitches. So I could not mention them. I had to put them in.
And I'm guessing they enjoyed that bantering between each other.
Yeah, New Yorkers are interesting. Some of them, anyway. There's this curious they can be really obnoxious and in your face, but a lot of it is couched in humor, which takes the sting out of it. To me, anyway. It's a very interesting sort of way to live, way to be. They're just very colorful,
Absolutely.
you know. And these two guys, the one in particular, was just a scream. I
I loved that part in the book, and I'm so grateful because I was jumping back and forth between, reading the hard copy and the listening to it on Audible. I would it's my listen to while I'm working out now. While I'm running, I'll usually have an Audible book playing, and that's the one. And I got to that part, and I'm so grateful that I was listening to the audio version because it was like, it was so immersive, and I got a little glimpse of what your daughter got to grow up with. So that was amazing.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I really do.
Well, Neil, man, thank you for taking the time and sit and talk with us. I had so much fun. I love, what you've done, what you've got going on. Are any projects you're working on currently, or? I mean, obviously we got the book.
I've got I got a game coming out.
Oh,
and it's funny because these folks that make these games, they are so concerned about having their intellectual property stolen that they make us sign these NDAs,
yeah.
non-disclosure agreements, and I've signed so many of these, and I'm terrified to talk about anything lest I
absolutely don't. Yeah.
But this one game, the guy said, I'm not going to ask you to sign an NDA. In fact, I want you to talk about this game. So I said, okay, you're on. So I'm not sure if it's available yet. It's supposed to come out this year. It's called Rosewater.
Rosewater, okay.
It's a Western point and click type game.
And I play a kindly old Doc Sedgwick and various other characters. And if you're a game type person, you might want to check it out. Rosewater.
Rosewater, and your voice sounds like you're voicing several characters in there. That is great.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, man. Okay, Neil. Thank you so much. I enjoyed meeting you and digging into your life. I'm gonna finish. Like I said, I'm at 13. I think we got what 50 some chapters in there. I'm excited to get to some of those parts.
The book is longer than War and Peace. I mean, I just.
But it really is. I mean, it's one of those that I don't want to put down. I mean, I read. The books that I like to read are the ones that just totally draw me in, and yours definitely has. So, thank you for sharing the story and your life with everyone. I love that you're vulnerable in it, and it really helps us to learn and grow from where you've been, what you've done, and I've just got to put my nose to the grindstone and get through it and do it, and that's the only way it's going to happen. So I love that.
Do your preparation.
Yeah. All right, my friend, have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
All right, sir. Thank you.